Good evening, and thank you for joining this, the last of our fourth Thursday stewardship webinars this year. We've been meeting since February to talk about stewardship topics in the Diocese of California. It's been a real delight to do this, and I'm a little sad that it's our last night together, but we'll be back. We'll be back next year with more things and more ideas. We're talking tonight about reinvigorating your legacy society and some planned giving best practices, an overview of planned gifts and planned giving. So however you are connected to planned giving, I hope that this gives you some basic starter information. This is a pretty high level overview. We'll have some opportunity to go a little deeper in your questions, but this won't answer probably every question you have about planned giving. For that, we should probably have a consultation and work on things like that. But let's get you started with tonight. We are going to talk about why a legacy society in your congregation or a planned giving society or whatever you choose to call it is helpful and how you can create and grow one. We're going to give you a big, broad overview of the different kinds of planned giving vehicles that are out there. The idea behind this isn't to make you a planned giving expert or a lawyer, but it's to help you promote this in your congregation. When you want to talk about this and say, well, this kind of a tool would give you a tax advantage now and give you an income stream, we'll give you some language like that so that you know how to promote this and help people understand which vehicles might be interesting to them. And then to close it or negotiate it, they would contact me at the diocese and we'd work on the arrangements with them. And finally, we're going to talk about the power of planned giving and why every congregation should have a legacy society. Starting off with a disclaimer, I am not a lawyer or an accountant or a CPA, and this presentation is designed to provide an overview. It is not intended to provide legal, tax, investment, or other professional advice. For that kind of information and for assistance, you should talk with a competent attorney or other professional advisor or a CPA, your accountant, something like that. Not me. I can't do that. So why create a legacy society? Legacy societies are a container, if you will, that promotes, supports, and teaches the discipline and beauty of planned giving in a congregation. A legacy society sort of holds the work of planned giving so that it doesn't get pushed onto the stewardship committee or the finance committee or the vestry. While all those groups might have some power in that or some ability to express themselves, a legacy society in particular is about recognizing and promoting it. Now, this isn't supposed to be a secret club with a handshake and exclusive. It's meant to be an informational group that helps promote this ministry in our congregations. One of the things we look for is long-term sustainability. When we can help our congregations understand that planned giving can be a long-term vehicle for stability in a congregation, for financial stability, it helps us be able to promote that and talk about that. One of the ways we do that is by talking about pledge replacement. When you are no longer able to make your pledge, when you have passed on, will there be a way for you to keep that pledge going in your congregation in perpetuity through a planned gift? And this is one of the beautiful powers of planned giving. I've got some stories to tell about that this evening. It also helps us ensure that our ministries outlast our time. Many of us care deeply about our congregations, and we've invested years and much of our time, our talent, and our treasure in the work of our church. And we want to make sure that it's there for the next generation and the generation after that and the generation after that. This comes from the fact that we have all inherited our churches from past generations. Most of our congregations were founded through some sort of a planned gift, either a legacy of an individual or a group of people who cared enough to plant a church in a particular place. And those gifts still are benefiting us in many ways. So one of the tools or one of the ideas behind planned giving in congregations now is that we ensure that our churches will be here for the next generation to come. I like to say that there are three testaments. This is an old church joke, right? The Old Testament you've all heard about, the New Testament, and then there's your last will and testament. And if you don't have a will, the state of California has a will for you. And they have a plan for how to dispose of your assets and your money, which may or may not align with your values and your desires. So a lot of this work is about ensuring that the right things happen with our money when we're no longer able to make those choices, and that our congregations or other charitable institutions can benefit from them. A legacy society and a congregation forms the cornerstone of your planned giving. As I said, it's that container that helps shape and form the ministry of planned giving. Planned giving is a ministry. It's not just a funding revenue, a revenue stream or a funding stream in your church. It's intentional because what we're talking about is the work that we do, the way we're called to do that work, and we're also dealing with our mortality and with our feelings of what happens after we die and how do we take care of the people we love. Planned giving is a deep pastoral ministry. It strengthens the bonds between donors and church, and some might say it strengthens them eternally, because as the communion of saints goes, we never break the bond with those who have given of their legacy and helped our churches grow into the future. It engenders a feeling of being rewarded, and this is why a legacy society is important. One of the reasons. It's about recognizing now that people have made gifts for later. It's lovely to be surprised by a bequest or to learn that your church has gotten a gift from someone who's been a longtime member and they've passed away. And it's a beautiful reminder of the life of that person and a celebration. But it's even better when we know that that gift is expected. They've planned for it, so it's really nice when we can also plan for that gift, when we can recognize their generosity now, when we can celebrate them. And a planned giving society or a legacy society in a congregation is a way that we can do that work, maybe holding an annual meeting or a celebration or a luncheon or some sort of an event that thanks everyone for participating in the legacy society or in the planned giving society of your congregation. And finally, the work of the legacy society, as I said before, is to promote this ministry. Other organizations and ministries, committees within your congregation are very much focused on the now. How do we fund our budget today? How do we solve today's problems? And those are important problems to solve in church. But legacy societies are about later. How do we plan for the future? How do we keep this work going? I'm sure you all know that on page 445 of the prayer book, it tells us that we should be thinking about planned giving. And so this comes from the Ministry of Thanksgiving for a Child, which is right before the baptism of a child in the Book of Common Prayer. And it reminds us, this is a rubric to the minister or the celebrant, the person doing the baptism, that they are directed to instruct people from time to time about the duty to provide for their families, the duty we have to make wills while they are in good health, arranging for the disposal of their temporal goods, not neglecting, if they are able, by the way, to leave bequests for religious and charitable uses. This is right in our prayer book, and it speaks to our deep theological understanding that our work continues when we're gone, that this is important to us and that we have a Christian duty to teach this. It's not just something we hide or put in the middle of a prayer book that we don't look at. It's something that we should be teaching and talking about. There are a few ways to get this work going if it isn't already going in your congregation. The first is let people know that it's an option. Many people don't know about planned giving because they haven't been asked. They haven't been invited to make a planned gift. They haven't thought about it. The first and easiest way to do that is write on your pledge cards. Ask people if they have remembered the church in their will, or if they're planning on doing that, or if they'd like more information on how to do that. If you put that little checkbox on their on the pledge card when they turn it in, or thinking about their annual gift, it might inspire them to think about, oh, maybe I could do this in the future. And it begins that relationship. I'd like a little bit more information on how to do this. Please tell me how. You can use this then to create and maintain a list of folks who have indicated an interest. And that might take a very long time. People might not be ready on their first time to say, yes, this is my planned gift and I'm ready to go. It might take a lot of conversations over time. This is a long game. It's not about closing a gift right now or having any sort of urgency about it. This is about planting the seed and then frequently tending it. You might establish a committee. Again, a committee focuses the work and it promotes it. It gives it a place in the church. The invitations to join a legacy society could come from your committee. You could hold an annual event. Annual legacy events are really fun because they usually have great food and good conversation. And they're not necessarily about bringing in new donors. They're about thanking the folks who have already made a gift, and they're about inviting others to learn more. This is a great way to promote people who have made gifts, maybe to put up a Legacy Society plaque or a wall or something where you can then say these people have made an honored gift to benefit the church. The diocese has a planned giving wall, which you may have walked past a million times. It's in the basement of Grace Cathedral. Right there before you enter the stairwell, there's a little dark spot and there's a planned giving plaque there that lists all the names of people in the diocese that have made planned gifts to their churches. You should absolutely recognize the people who have made planned gifts or have indicated that they will make a planned gift. Put them into your annual meeting notes. Put them into a place where you remember and recognize them. When we are able to hold events again, the diocese will have an annual event recognizing what we call the Bishop Society. And that's everyone in the diocese who's made a planned gift to the diocese, to their congregation, or to an institution. And that'll be an event at which you all can bring your legacy societies to the cathedral, and we'll do a nice big event celebrating everyone. We haven't done it in a couple of years, but we'll get back to doing it when we can all gather again and share that time together. This work has to be done all the time. The pipeline for planned giving should never stop. We should always be thinking of this. So planned giving often in our congregations goes through fits and starts. There's a group of folks who gets really excited about it. They do some really good work. Maybe they close some great gifts and the pipeline is nice and a lot of people are interested. And then that group loses interest, or maybe some people leave it, or that work runs fallow for a while. And what happens then is that there's a whole group of people who miss out on the opportunity to hear about planned giving. They might not be in the pipeline because they come and go while that legacy society is fallow. And that can sometimes lie dormant for years in congregations before somebody picks it back up again and says, we should be doing this, and gets excited about it. So the work of planned giving is always, and we need to think of it that way. This is why having a society and saying who's in it, who's doing this work, who wants to keep doing this work is so important, because they can help push that into the calendar of the church year. There is lots of information out there on how to create and grow your legacy society. A lot of it comes from the Episcopal Church Foundation, which has great information. They will sell you some pamphlets. They'll also give you a lot of free information on their website. If you go to it, it's great. They have a wonderful consultant. His name is Jim Murphy, and he frequently comes out to the Bay Area and meets with people in churches and is happy to tell you about how ECF can help. And there are lots of books. There are lots of books on Amazon about this. We've listed a couple of them from our friend Charles Cluin. He's the planned giving consultant in the Diocese of Maryland. And he's been there for 63 years doing this ministry. He loves it. He's sort of a character, and he's written some great books on how to initiate the conversation of planned giving. So these books and pamphlets, you'll have this list in the email that I send. These are great starting places for you to get more information. So gift planning is about the future of your congregation. Just as your congregation was started intentionally with some planned gifts, it also continues in perpetuity through the renewal of planned giving. So we need to figure out how planned giving fits into our congregation's income. It should be up there with space rental and endowment and our annual campaign and our outreach funds. We should have something coming in every year or at some frequent rate where we can talk about planned giving and its impact. I know in my own congregation, for example, which recently received a bequest, when that money comes in and you see this elevation, there's a renewed interest in planned giving, because people see, oh, look at that. It's just come in, we can see how it's impacting us. We can see the work that will be done because this is possible, and it elevates everybody's mindset on it. So you should definitely have in your budget, as you talk about it, this is what we get from planned gifts, whether that comes through an endowment or a reserve fund, or whether it's expected gifts that you hope to mature in that year. What is a gift that's planned? Well, I say all gifts are planned, right? So we intentionally make a gift, they just don't happen, right? We say yes to this. We intentionally fill out some paperwork or write a check or hand over a card. But when we plan a gift, when we call a gift planned, it means that we plan on fulfilling it later. We make the gift now to fulfill at some later date. This is why we call it a planned gift. We're going to talk a little bit about the most common types of planned gifts and how we can promote planned giving that achieves donors' wishes now and in the future. Some of them will produce an income stream for life or for a time. Let's talk a little bit about how this fits in, how planned giving fits into our overall work of church. Stewardship is what we do with all of the assets that God has given us, all of the gifts that we have received, our time, talent, and our treasure. Stewardship is the way, the relationship we have with those gifts and how we share them. I recently heard Sister Simone Campbell. I don't know if you know her, but she's just an amazing activist nun. She wrote Nuns on the Bus, which is about showing up to social protests, mostly about poverty and workers' rights. She's a pretty amazing person. Anyway, she talked about the discipleship of stewardship as that moment on the road to Emmaus when the disciples figure out it's Jesus because he stops and he breaks and he shares the bread. It's in the sharing of our gifts that we receive that understanding of stewardship and that blessing of being able to give and receive. We talk often about giving for today. That's our annual campaign, our estimates or our pledge campaigns, whatever we call them. And then our future giving, how we make a planned gift for the future. You've probably seen this or understand this in your congregation already, but it bears repeating now. Our pyramid of faith-based giving relies on our bottom three rungs as sort of the base, the way we get into our giving. So our annual campaign, our stewardship campaign, some places call it, things that come in through the pledge and the plate. Those are our visitors who stop by, our frequently returning guests, and our members, those people who make their gift every year. Those first three tiers of our pyramid are really important to our funding, and a lot of the work of our church happens in those first three tiers because those annual gifts make up so much of our budget. But then we talk in the next two, capital and special giving. Those are special appeals that we do maybe for a particular outreach ministry, or when we have to build something or endow something or start a new ministry. We do special fundraising, and those are our major gifts. We might ask people to make big pledges paid over time to do something really powerful and spectacular for their church. So that's an important part of our funding stream, but it's not frequent. It happens on a slower timetable. Maybe every 7 years or 10 years, we're doing capital campaigns and special giving appeals. And then finally, our legacy gifts, which come in as they do. And those are our bequests, annuities, or other planned gifts. And they go usually into our endowment or reserve accounts that your vestry might have. Maintenance reserve, operating reserve, discretionary reserves, the kinds of rainy day funds that churches need to make sure that they can ride out a bumpy road should they need to. This is where your legacy gifts really provide income back into your operating fund or provide necessary income when things get rough. Every gift is a planned gift. And so I like to think of it that way. I don't think anything is up to chance. When we make our pledge, when we renew that estimate of giving every year, we make a plan for that. We pray about it. It's intentional. We think that through. We talk it over with our family. We make a gift that's right for us and our household. But then there are those other gifts that can also be planned for. Gifts made over time through long pledges, capital campaigns, special giving, or gifts through our estate. We usually make these gifts with considerable thought because we're talking about our estate plans, because we're talking about the kinds of giving that have real impact. We call these estate gifts because they come from our larger assets, things that we might hold on to until it's time to dispose of our assets at the end of life. And so those estate gifts are a part of our plan. We can also make outstanding gifts from current resources, and many of our people use appreciated assets or the sale of a house or stock that they've been holding on to for a long time to make considerable gifts for specialized campaigns or even annual funding. And we have ways to handle that too. Usually planned giving societies or planned giving officers work with that kind of giving as well. More than 50% of Americans will die without a will. This is just true. They don't take the time to make that will. As we said before, if you don't, California has one for you, and it may or may not be what you want to do with your money. Only 6% of people leave money to their parish or another charity without being asked. So this is the clincher there, right? So left on their own, people think about giving an estate gift. About 6% of people will think about doing that. Most people need to be asked often, need to feel some sort of connection with their congregation. I talk with rectors and vicars often in my work about the sadness or regret they feel about not having asked someone for a planned gift while they still could, while that person was in control of their assets, could make decisions about their money, or was still alive. And the number one reason that people don't make planned gifts to their congregation is because no one asked them. Okay, I know that it's hard work. It's already hard work to talk about money in church. And you add the layer of death on top of it, it's not easy. I get that. And because it's ministry, because it empowers our ministry, and because planned gifts can also really help the people who make them, there's a beauty in making these asks and asking for these gifts. So don't leave those gifts unasked. Don't leave them unattended. There's another really important thing in our world to think about, and that's if your congregation isn't asking people for planned gifts, other charities are. Arts organizations, community support organizations, other large charities have planned giving departments. Our schools, our universities, they certainly have planned giving departments, and they are asking people to make these planned gifts. If your congregation doesn't ask, your parishioners may be leaving their money to another organization. That's great. We want our people to be generous and to support the world with their gifts, but we don't want to do that at the loss of our congregations having been able to do that. So learn the skill, learn to have the conversation about planned giving with folks. And it can be gentle. It's not a hard sell. It's gentle. Have you thought about this? Would you like to think about this? How can we help you with this? Why make a gift to your church? Well, it makes a significant impact on the congregation and its mission. There is a family, actually 4 families, at True Sunshine here in San Francisco that have for years been using a pooled income fund. So that means they wanted to create an endowment, but no one individually had enough threshold to create the endowment themselves. So they pooled their funds together, and they have a pooled investment, which has been contributing a little bit every year to their church. Well, they've been doing it for almost 4 decades. And do you know that they have together almost $4 million now? Because this has been happening for decades, over time, small gifts. So these 4 families, there's a lot of 4s in this story. These 4 families are going to leave an incredible legacy to their church when they are no longer able to make their gift. But they didn't do it all at once, and it's not even coming from their final assets. They chipped away at this goal year by year with small gifts as they were able to. And it's an incredible gift that they will give to True Sunshine one day. It's that easy. It's that easy to do. And they had an inspiring session 40 years ago with a rector and a planned giving officer who were able to set that up for them and make this possible. It's a delight every year when they call and they say, what's our balance? And I get to have this amazing conversation with them about how well things are going for their endowment and where it will eventually go and how excited they are someday for the church to have that. Planned gifts also have the possibility of providing lower taxes at death, or even now there are tax advantaged programs that you can take you can take into account. So there are some planned giving vehicles that don't pass on all of those taxes to your loved ones, but there are ways that you can avoid some of those penalties. There are ways that you can increase your income now through planned gifts, and it will say something about who you are and what you value. Bishop Mark talks about going to a funeral in the Moravian church tradition. The Moravian church is another Protestant church, and it's in full communion with the Episcopal Church. But there aren't a lot of Moravians, especially not a lot in the United States. There are just a few thousand of them. But they have this beautiful practice at their funeral liturgy. They read the spiritual will of the person who has died. This isn't a will of their temporal goods. This is a will of the values and the lessons they want to pass on. And they're specific. So it might be like, Davy, I want you to know this, and this is important to you in your life, and this was important to me. And they're read out in the funeral liturgy, and they are absolutely stunning. To hear this powerful story being told and these legacies being passed on helps us understand that we don't just leave our money and memories behind. We pass on our values. And part of a planned gift is letting people know where your values are and what you're doing with your money and where you want your church to be, how you want to support your church into the future. Bequests are, of course, the simplest planned gift. Anyone can do one. If you already have a will, you add a codicil to it and you're good. So this accounts for almost all of the planned gifts that are out there. It's the largest percentage. And they're often surprises. I put this little headline in there about this man in Iowa who left his church a surprise. It's often a surprise because we don't ask if people have planned to make a gift or have left our church in the will, or they choose not to tell us because they're somehow awkward or embarrassed about it, because maybe there isn't a legacy society that's promoting this work. They don't want to feel weird about saying, well, I've left money for you. They don't want people to know how much they have. We put these things in our mind. But bequests are the most common, and they're often surprises to our congregation. It's really nice when they don't have to be surprises, though, when you can be honored in your own lifetime for having made or planning to make a beautiful gift. Bequests are often done in one of two ways, where people give a remainder, a percentage of their will, and that's usually advisable because you don't know the exact amount of your will at your death. It depends on everything, on the market, on your creditors, on all sorts of variables. And so it's more helpful when people create a percentage to donate rather than a fixed dollar amount. The fixed dollar amount may be way more or way less than they might want to give. And so a percentage is usually a better way for people to do that, but it's up to the donor. Almost as easy as a bequest is giving from our retirement accounts. So often people turn over their retirement accounts when they no longer need them. The church can be made a beneficiary or a partial beneficiary, or even a contingent beneficiary. So it goes to my wife and then to my son, and and then to the church. So you can pass these along in various ways. Retirement accounts, we're putting lots of assets in them. We hope that they're enough to last our lifetime, but when they're not and they last longer than we do, what are we doing with those? If we don't have a plan for them, some of our good planning has gone to waste. But if we have a plan for how to dispose of retirement assets, often churches and charities can benefit from that. And certainly this is a way to save on taxes. People also make gifts now from their retirement accounts. Required minimum distributions are a way that many people over the age of 72 make those gifts from their retirement accounts, because they have to give away a certain amount or have to withdraw from the IRA a certain amount of money every year. So a lot of people will give some of that to their church. If you have donors that are like that, or if you have seniors who are saying, I live on a fixed income and I don't know how to pay my pledge, and this might be an option for them, this is something to talk about. Retirement accounts are a way that people can give both later and now to their church. Some donors choose.
Have you ever been to the opera?
Have I ever been to the opera?
Yeah. You have?
Yes.
Large deal.
Sorry about that. Would you be at all interested or willing?
And are you having this conversation with us? No, I don't think she was. Okay. Many donors choose to make gifts from their donor advised funds or set up a donor advised fund. If you don't know what this is, it's a great way to put your assets into a fund, which you then control how those funds are dispersed. People do this often when they have a windfall or when they have an account they might like to put into a fund. That way they get to choose through annual grants who and how those gifts are made. So often churches benefit from donor advised funds. People put their money into that and then make grants. If you have members who are making gifts from their donor advised fund to fund their annual gift to your church, they are making grants. They are not paying pledges. And I say this because that's an important distinction in the kind of letter you write them. If you write them a letter thanking them for a pledge or paying a pledge, it won't work for their tax purposes. They must have a letter that says thank you for your payment or your grant or your gift, words like that, because if it's a pledge, you don't make pledges from your donor advised fund. That's for the accountants and the tax lawyers in the room. Donor advised funds are great ways to keep small amounts of money. Like if you have enough to put into a donor advised fund, but not enough, for example, to start your own family foundation, a donor advised fund acts that way. You can make small grants every year and make beautiful gifts to your church that way. Here are some gifts that we can all give. Bequests, again, everyone can make a gift from a bequest. It costs you nothing or almost nothing to do that. And it's very easy to do. We suggest that everyone who has a will make some sort of a planned gift from their will in some amount. It's so easy to do, and it's absolutely necessary, I think. Another gift that you can give now that costs you nothing during your lifetime is to give from your retirement account or your life insurance or other sorts of accounts, brokerages that you might have out there. Life insurance is one that I definitely want to make sure we talk about. Often earlier in our lives, when we are the prime earner in our household, we may take insurance policies out on ourselves for our family, for our children, in case we're injured or we're no longer able to work and what would happen. But then we hold on to those life insurance policies much longer than we need to. Our children have now grown. They have now children of their own and life insurance policies of their own, and they might not need that $10,000 or $50,000 policy we got decades ago. Well, you can give that to the church. You can just sign that over. It takes a simple form, and then the church gets a really lovely gift for very little work. If you have life insurance policies that you no longer need and your children aren't relying on them as a significant a part of their inheritance or expectation, it's one of the easiest gifts to turn over to your church or a charity. There are some gifts like stock that can be more beneficial than giving cash for you, because if you donate appreciated stock, you can deduct the full value, but avoid the capital gains tax. This is great if you're holding on to, as many of us are these days, holding on to some highly appreciated stock. It provides an immediate gift to your church, which could be used in your annual campaign, but it doesn't, sorry, I got distracted there. It avoids the capital gains. It provides a beautiful gift now to your congregation, and it's helpful later when you want to circle back and think about that. I had a question come in from Elizabeth, which I should have waited before.
You don't have to answer it now.
I should have waited to finish speaking before I read it, because
Yeah, no, you don't have to answer it now.
Oh, it's fine. Now I'm here. Who pays the premium of life insurance policy if given to the church? So these are life insurance policies for which you've already paid. It's like you're like, wait, you're done with it now. It's been paid off. It's sitting in a drawer. Your children are mature. There's no longer a premium. But if you're still holding on to it, if you're still paying it and you want to give it over to the church, and you still want, if you're still paying on it and want to leave it to the church later, you continue paying it because it's in your will, or the church is your beneficiary of your life insurance policy. So you're still holding it until you're no longer able to hold it. So if you're still paying on it, you continue paying on it. It just is going to go to your church as the beneficiary. Does that make sense? Thank you for the question. There are some gifts that you can make that you'll get an income that you can never outlive. An irrevocable gift, like a charitable gift, gives you a deduction now, in the year of the gift, and income for life. You can never outlive this. When you set this up, the institution, the diocese in this case, would have to keep paying you out at your rate, no matter how long you lived. The older the donor, the higher the return on an income gift is. Usually it's a small minimum to establish a gift, and it's a simple contract. The Episcopal Church Foundation, your broker, they're likely able to help you set these up. They have the forms to fill out, and it's really easy to go. Many offer competitive rates, and the minimum contributions vary, but they're usually approachable. They want you to be able to add to them. An example of this is a charitable gift annuity. And you can do these as 1 or 2 life. So am I just doing this, or am I doing this for me and my spouse? But in this case, we have some property, some stock, a piece of property, some cash sitting around in an account. And we set up a CGA with our church through the diocese. That principal sits there, and right away you can see that it provides an income tax deduction in the year that it was made. It provides some money for life, which the amount of which is tax-free for a significant period of time, and has a large payout rate. And then when you are no longer alive, the remainder of that at this at this gift, a lovely gift of 38,000 on your 50 goes to the church. So this is a way that you have put that money into a fund, which gives you a lifetime income stream, which continues to build in a way, and at the end of your life gives an incredible gift to your congregation. That's when it's for one life. When it's for 2 lives, and you'll notice that the annuity rate changed. Before it was 5.8%, because we're talking about a single person who's 75 years old. Now we're talking about 2 people, one of whom is 73, the other is 77. So they get a slightly lower rate because one of them is younger, is going to likely live longer. But it works in the same way, where there's a lovely tax deduction in the year that the gift is made, an annuity that continues in perpetuity, and then the church or charity gets a lovely gift at the end at a payout rate of about 7.8%. You can usually set these up as quarterly payments or sometimes semi-annual, annual payments. You can usually set them up. If you do it through the diocese, we give those 3 options: quarterly, half year, or annual. Charitable remainder trusts are another way to do this, and they function almost the same as a charitable gift annuity, only they have a higher threshold, where the charitable gift annuity starts small at about $5,000 or $10,000. Charitable remainder trusts are 100,000 and above. For that reason, they usually give you a better interest rate, and they're for larger assets, but still operate in the same way, where they give you a lifetime income and they build and they give a generous gift to the church when you pass on. Like that family at True Sunshine, or those 4 families, if you can't afford to put 100,000 in all at one time, you can use a pooled income fund to get yourself up to that threshold. Episcopal Church Foundation, for example, uses a pooled income fund. The diocesan endowment no longer encourages pooled income funds, but if you really talk us into it, we'll let it happen and make it, and we're pretty easy when it comes down to it. So here's a little reminder. Life insurance, if you make the church your beneficiary, partial beneficiary, or contingent beneficiary, it will give your congregation a lovely gift. This is not for term life insurance, obviously. You don't need any help to add a codicil to a will you've already made. That just requires paper and signature and a pen to do it. You don't need a lawyer to change a retirement account beneficiary. That's usually just simple paperwork or an online form these days. And the same is true of a life insurance beneficiary. Sometimes it's just a phone call or a form. You need a little help if you're going to set up a CGA or a trust or a pooled income fund. And that help would come from a planned giving officer at your institution, for example, the diocese or Episcopal Impact Fund. They have some folks who could help you. Your church, if you ask them, they'll likely punt the call up to me at the diocese. And that's how we do planned gifts. The diocese works for all of you as congregations. We don't charge for that work. It's a part of being a part of the diocesan family. So you need some help from a planned giving officer, and you will want a lawyer or a trusted accountant to look over the contract and make sure that it makes sense for you, that everything you want is in there, and that it's been reviewed. You can do that for a whole life insurance policy or a gift of real estate as well. Those are a little more complicated, but those can be done. You absolutely need to see a lawyer to make your first will. So make sure that you do that. It's usually not terribly expensive to do, but it's really important that you do it, and that lawyer not be contracted by the agency that could possibly benefit from your gift. Otherwise, your will could be contested later, so don't do that. So for example, the diocese wouldn't hire a lawyer to help you write your will. We would have a conflict of interest there. You'll need a lawyer to set up any kind of trust. Trusts are more binding and complex legal documents. You'll want a lawyer to draw that up. The diocese would give sample language, but the lawyer would probably tweak it and make sure that it's up to your standards, because a trust is a wholly different sort of vehicle and entity under the law. And if you want to establish more complex gifts, like your primary residence, for example, or a farm or a factory, something like that, you're going to a mine. We have a mine that's been left to the diocese. I just had to renew our mining license in Nevada for $42. This is a thing we have to do. People make those sorts of gifts, and they need lawyers to complete them. So I would love to take your questions. I would love to hear more about your ideas on planned giving and legacy giving. I have some answers to detailed questions you have on vehicles, and I have a lot of answers on how to make legacy societies effective and comfortable in your congregation. We also have a lot of brochures and help that we can send you from the diocese. I know Sharon has asked for our brochure, and we've sent some stuff. Lisa, you and I have talked about planned giving before, and we have some stuff in the works. Eventually it'll come through. But how can I help you tonight? What questions can I answer?
I don't have a question. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Meg.
I'm thinking, yes, everything you say about honoring the people who are able to do this, but how do you avoid making people who either cannot give or feel that they cannot give, even though maybe they could if they really thought about it, making them feel lesser?
Yeah.
So you want to have some sort of balance so that nobody feels left out if they can't participate.
Right. Well, that's why I say a legacy society isn't like, there's no secret handshake and, they don't get to wear cool clothes or anything. Not everyone is called to make a planned gift. While everyone can, because everyone has some asset at the end of their life that they could leave. And if it's $5, if it's their checking account, whatever it is, people could make a gift. And so no one needs to feel completely left out. The other thing I like to remind people about planned giving is that even when we say the word, we think, oh, well, that must mean they want my multi-million-dollar house, or they want me to donate so much that they name the wing after me or whatever. Planned gifts aren't all huge like that. Some of them can be very modest. An example, my grandfather, who wasn't a terribly wealthy man, left his life insurance policy to his college. It was a $50,000 life insurance policy that my dad and his sisters didn't need. And every year we get a letter from a student at Amherst College in Massachusetts that benefited from my grandfather's life insurance, the scholarship that was set up with that life insurance policy. It wasn't huge, and 50 grand to Amherst College is absolutely nothing. But to my grandfather, it was important. And to the student who every year gets this little scholarship that is able to fund it, it's a big deal. And so we don't have to give big gifts to have them be meaningful and planned. And when we're talking about congregations, some of whom have very small budgets or very tight budgets, and a life insurance policy, a small bequest, can make all kinds of difference in a parish budget. So I like to downplay our fear that planned gifts have to be huge in order to be impactful. And also, I like to remind people that not everyone is called to do it. While everyone can, really, because you could give the remnants of your checking account as a planned gift to your congregation. And there's probably something in there. you don't have to, and not everybody feels called to do that. So it's education and communication as well. Your Legacy Society members aren't any closer to God. They're no better than anyone else in the church, but they have made a gift that needs to be remembered and recognized as well. They're special people because they've done something special, but we can all do it. Elizabeth, you had something to ask or say.
Well, I am afraid that my question in the chat interrupted a very important part of your talk, which is about stock giving, appreciated stock. And if folks don't know about it or really realize about it, so say you bought, the idea is you say you bought, Exxon stock for $5 a share, and now it's $500 a share. I have no idea. And so, if you were to sell that stock and, 2 shares of it and give the church $1,000, you'd be paying the capital gains on that sale. But if you just give the actual stock to the stock brokerage account of the church, you don't pay any capital gains because it's a charitable gift and the church gets $1,000.
Yep.
So I just want to make sure everybody knows it because it's fantastic.
Yeah, that is the advantage to giving the stock. And so, frequently I get messages from congregations saying, so-and-so wants to pay their pledge this year with stock. How do I do it? And if your congregation doesn't already have a broker that they work with, the diocese does, and we will send you a form, and it's that easy to fill out. But as Elizabeth says, they don't sell the stock first and then give you the proceeds. They would lose their shirt. But if they give the stock itself and the broker sells it and donates the proceeds, it's so much better for their tax bill.
And typically the policy is that the charitable organization, in this case, the church, sells it upon receipt. There's no playing the market or anything like that.
In fact, that's our immediate, I think that might be the law, but it's certainly our policy.
Oh, is it? Oh.
we get rid of it right away. Yeah, Lisi.
We don't do or we haven't really done anything significant. So this has been very, very helpful. In terms of asking people, do you recommend, or do other people tend to weave a planned gift ask into like the annual pledge campaign or a capital campaign? Do you do something special and separate? And if that, how do you get over the, oh God, they're always asking me for money every time I turn around? How do you implement?
Right. Well,
especially if you're getting started.
Yeah, I hear that. The first thing is, yes, I have seen incredibly successful campaigns that are what I call blended. So you're asking for an annual gift plus something else, capital or planned, or all three. I've seen campaigns that run that way, and they're beautiful because they minimize that thing of you're always asking me for money. No, I'm just asking you once for 3 gifts. So you're not going to have to take 3 calls from me. But more to the point, they are different gifts for different reasons. And I think this is really important when we talk about our giving to church. We hope that stewardship is a part of our discipleship, a part of our understanding of belonging and our commitment to the ministry that we're doing in that place. And so if somebody is already sort of a begrudging giver, they may not be a happy planned giver. But if they understand that their giving is for ministry and they really care about it and they've been faithful and loyal donors, they're likely not going to be offended or annoyed by starting the conversation. Planting seeds is one way to do it. As I said, something as passive as putting it on your pledge card and your website. Have you thought about making a planned gift? having a brochure discreetly placed at the back of the church or online. These little triggers that plant the seed are really helpful. At some point, it is helpful, and this is why a legacy society is great. If there are people in your congregation who are willing to identify themselves as having made a planned gift, planning on making a planned gift, left the church in their will, they're then able to give a testimonial like we do in our stewardship campaigns. I support the church because it matters to me and I want my children to be raised here and whatever. You can ask people to do those sorts of testimonials about their planned gift. And they then help promote and recruit the idea. So if there's someone in your congregation that has already done that or identified themselves, enrolling them right away and saying, would you help us build this society? Would you make a testimonial, a video, a piece of paper, something that we can share? I'm thinking of St. Gregory's in particular, which was built through some very intentional gifts from incredibly generous people. And you already have that story, and that story is in the lifetime of people who are members now or recent enough that even new.
That gift came from somebody who's a member now. So
Exactly.
that's somebody that everybody, everybody knows, which in some ways makes it easier and in some ways makes it stickier.
Yeah. I hear that. But and I think, when we're able to say this institution was built by a planned gift, and if you can get any support from that person to help promote other people who would want to join them in making gifts to support the life and the future of St. Gregory's, then you already have some more oomph behind you, right? As you're starting off. I think it's really helpful.
No, that makes sense. One thing we did, and we failed to follow through as well as we should have, because it should have worked better than it did. We had sort of a last things seminar, and we worked with people to write their health directives and simple, taught them about simple wills. We didn't write them, but we sort of talked to them about the importance of making a will. And we wove a pitch, for leaving money to a charity or the church into that. And as I said, we didn't do as good a job of follow-up as we should have. We got a couple, but we didn't do anything that built momentum. And so I'm trying to figure out how to get it rolling. So your suggestions are really helpful.
It's easy to lose momentum in planned giving. It only takes a couple of years of not talking about it for it to fade from memory really fast, right? I mean, because people, it's not top of mind. But you go back to those people who are still living, who have made an intention, and you ask them, we're trying to get this started. Will you give us a testimonial? You point to people or gifts that have recently matured and say, look at what this did when our congregation got this gift. This person died X years ago and we're benefiting from it. What a beautiful gift that was. And if people remember that, it's a way to bring that back in. If you have a columbarium or that kind of a ministry in your congregation and people can see that there are people who have physically chosen to stay there and be a part of the community, it's a way to honor that. A lot of congregations build these kinds of campaigns or commitments around milestones. Every 5 years, you have some milestone to celebrate in your church. So use it as an opportunity to say, we're doing a campaign this year to ensure the future of our church, and we're doing a planned giving push because it's our 75th anniversary, because it's our 80th anniversary. Whatever it is, you have these opportunities, these milestones. Take advantage of them. And then liturgically, I think about Lent is a good time to talk about planned giving. We're talking about ashes and dust and suffering. And All Saints is a beautiful opportunity to talk about the communion of saints and how we continue forever in the life of the church. And so these little, if you get your preacher to talk about these things and interject those ideas, again, a planned gift can take 7 or 8 plantings in order to get someone kind of ready for it. And so it comes with all these gentle reminders until someone's ready to say, okay, I would like to move forward with this. It's beautiful.
Thanks.
Great, thanks for your question. Sharon, you're tying your planned giving push to a milestone at St. Paul's, is that right?
We're hoping to.
Yeah.
We can get our act together. Yeah, it's our 150th anniversary.
Right.
So that seems like the right time to do it. And we've benefited from bequests, and honestly, I don't know, we would be in deep doo-doo without those bequests, because they really have sustained us in times where we have had dips in our operating income, and they've really helped us. And so, yeah. Well, I have just a question about sort of some of the logistics of all this. So, I want to make it as, for some of these more complex transactions like stock gifts and donor advised funds and all that kind of stuff. Because what I don't want to do is say, call the church office for more information, and have the church office say, I don't know, because they probably would say that. And so yeah. So what do you put on your website? I mean, I've been looking, right?
Right.
I've been looking at Grace. I've been looking at Washington National Cathedral. What do people put? And they put all kinds of stuff. They put on their broker, their tax ID number, their DTC number, the blah, blah. Yeah. So they put a lot of stuff. I guess it's okay to put that on your website.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
sure.
Yeah. And then, yeah, I just,
The main thing about stock gifts is that you want to make sure that they tell you that they're giving the stock, and that you have that broker. And our broker is pretty proactive at Grace Cathedral, and she'll, let her CFO know when something has come in. They must check it every day or so, or maybe they get a notification. But if you don't know and your broker's not checking, then you may just have the stock sitting there in your account. So it's so much better if the person who gives you the stock sends you a copy of their letter of instruction to their broker. Then you know what's coming, and you can tell your broker to look out for it. Do you have a broker?
yes, we do.
Yes. Yeah. And I would definitely put that on the site, because when somebody calls you and says, oh, I want to give my 2 shares of Exxon, then you say, oh, it's right here. Here's all the DTC transfer information right here on the site. There's no confusion. Here, let me email you that link. And oh, hello, please let us know when you transfer it. And what they really should do, if you're really being picky, is they should write you a letter that says, this is for my stewardship pledge. This is for the capital campaign, so that your auditors know the designation of the gift and everything's taken.
Yes. I love it, Elizabeth.
Alternately, we just made a 1-pager. This is for stock gifts, not planned gifts. We just did a 1-pager, and we tell people, gee, if you want to make a stock gift, and it's on our pledge card, if you want to make a stock gift, please contact the treasurer. It's got my email on it. And then I shoot them the 1-pager by email. The reason that's good is it gets me over the problem that Elizabeth is talking about, because then I know they're thinking about it. We actually don't work with a broker. We manage our own account. And so we know to be looking, we know to talk with them about their intent, that kind of stuff. So where some nonprofits I'm on the board of put it all on the website. Depending on the volume that you all do, if it's 1 or 2 a year, I would recommend do a 1-pager and refer
Right, refer them.
refer them to your stewardship chair or whoever it is, so that you know it's in the works.
I love everything you guys are saying. Thank you. So important. Sharon, again, just have a point person that you know will have the information about planned giving. So I agree. Ask the church office for more information. It's really hard because the church office doesn't necessarily know what to do with that. So if you're willing to make yourself the point person for this, or, you can refer them to the diocese, but I would, it's better when they start with you.
Yeah,
Or as Lisi says, she hands them a form, then she knows she's given them all the information that they need. And you can then follow up. Hey, did you get that? Or do you have any questions? And it's just an easier way.
yeah.
Sure
I
that,
just worry about like turnover, the treasurer turns over, the stewardship chair turns over, the
Right.
email turns over, maybe they're not checking that email. That's what I worry about is
Yeah.
that sort of.
well, again, that's why having a legacy society,
Yeah.
so that should always be happening in your congregation. There should be a group of people that's always like, oh, talk to Sharon. She's our planned giving person. She'll tell you all about it. She's our favorite ambassador. But then you also have some other people on your committee for when you miss a Sunday or you move away. There are other people to take your place. So having a contact person is really important. And again, I want to thank Elizabeth for her comment about making sure when you're doing stock, making sure you let your broker know what it's for. I cannot tell you how many times I get a gift. Our broker emails us and says, you have to authorize 67 shares of something. And I'm like, who is it? And what's it for? Is it for me, one of our congregations? Is it for the diocese? Is it for one of our campaigns?
Is it a mistake?
Is it a mistake? Is it dark money? I don't know. Right. And so I have to know before I can authorize it. And I hate it when I can't find that information. They don't know, nobody knows. I'm like, there are like shares of stock sitting and not being sold.
Yes.
And the broker doesn't know. The broker can maybe trace by the DTC
Right.
what broker it came from, and maybe sometimes what account, if they'll tell you, but usually they won't because of privacy.
Yeah, sometimes
so-
I get things and I just have to say, send this back. And
So you want a letter that states who it's from and what it's for, and the letter should be sent to the broker and the church.
Yep.
Correct?
Yes.
Well, the ideal is maybe just because the person has to tell their broker to do it, and they would do that in a form of a letter, and they would copy you so that you see it. And another thing you can do is also, I did this years ago at a school where I worked. I would put it in, anybody who was capable or who was giving or who we were asking for like $1,000 or more. I would put it in the annual fund solicitation with a little remit card, and it was a little sheet, a double page. On one side, it said why it's good to give to stocks. And then on the, here's the advantages of it. And the other side, it was like a form letter. And most people are sophisticated enough to, type their own instruction to their broker, but some people would actually take my form and fill it out and send it to their broker.
Yeah.
And, it said, I am gifting, you can find templates for this online probably, but, I am gifting X shares of X for the annual fund. This is from these people, and please do this before, whatever the instructions were. It was very cool.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
Great.
and Sharon, I think a bottom line of that is, and your concerns about turnover and stuff, make a binder. I mean, whether it's an electronic binder or one that's sitting on somebody's shelf with all these sort of one pagers, and it might just say Charitable Remainder Trust, call Davy. You know, it doesn't have to be real detailed, but if it's in simple enough language that somebody can hand it over, then you've got a piece of paper or a document on your computer, so that if you're not there one Sunday, or you know, you stop doing it, or somebody moves away, the document is there. And that seems really obvious, but 95% of everybody, including me, doesn't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or doesn't update it often enough. So I would really recommend document.
Yep. Great. Thank you. I love it when you give each other great advice. Well, are there any other questions that I can answer, or any other conversations you'd like to have this evening about this? Look for our Bishop Society stuff next year. We're going to be doing some regional events starting in 2022, and I don't know what those will look like. We're not going to do them until it's safe for us to be gathering in person, but we're going to host some regional, like, wills writing workshops and end of life things, and doing that work throughout the diocese. We're going to be doing an annual event again one day. It's usually an evensong at Grace Cathedral, and then the bishop, you know, takes pictures with people, and we have food and drinks. So look for that. I hope that we can be open in 2022, but if not, we'll find a virtual way at the beginning of the year to start calling us together regionally, maybe by deanery or something like that, so that we can have these kinds of conversations. And if you're bringing legacy societies together, we can do some more training for the folks in your congregation and go a little deeper. So you tell us what you need, and we will develop trainings to help you figure it out. But whatever the case, I hope that you've come to understand today that planned gifts don't need to be huge, and they don't need to be hard to close, and this isn't a hard sell. You aren't the person who has to make the panicked call to people to get this done. The diocese has all the resources you need to be able to help you do that. And I shared the link with the diocesan planned giving page in the chat. And we also use a piece of software called Crescendo. Crescendo, and so you all have access to it. It's the tool we use to do the illustration. And we have a link to it in our diocesan website under the planned giving page. And so if you want to see, just toying around, what a charitable remainder trust looks like for this amount and over this period of time and with this interest rate, you can plug in your own numbers and it'll tell you, it'll spit it out and what that looks like. So it's a good idea, gives you a good idea if you're really looking at charitable remainder trust, charitable gift annuities, those kinds of things, and you want to give a donor an idea right away, you can go right to the website and plug that in. And then if you want a deeper presentation and to learn more about it and to have a more formal process, you can call me and I will run through the whole thing and give them a presentation. But just online, you can just look and see what the numbers would look like. And sometimes that's really helpful in helping a donor see how they could get a tax advantage now and a lifetime income stream later and a gift to the church even after that. So take advantage of that. It's a free service for all of you from the diocese, and use it, please. So look for more. We'll be in touch. I really appreciate your time and attention to this. We'll post this webinar online and I'll send you an email when it's up and running. I
Thank you
appreciate
so much,
all the
Davey.
work you're doing. Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Dave.
Have a good night.
Good night.